Good morning, my name's Ella Minton and today I'll be talking about constructivist learning theory. Albert Einstein once said about his own teaching practice, "I never teach my pupils, I only attempt to provide the conditions in which they learn." During my presentation, I'll examine constructivist learning theory and analyse whether providing resources and the right environment is sufficient enough to promote learning. I'll discuss some of the key features as well as strengths and limitations and explore its practical application by looking at a lesson I experienced in design and technology at school. So let's look at some of the foundations. Psychological constructivism has its foundations in Jean Piaget's cognitive development theory. He believes that individuals move through stages of development known as zones of proximal development. As they became more skilled and knowledgeable, they moved through to the next stage. He believed the social environment was important, but the focus was very much on the individual. Social constructivism has its foundations in Vygotsky's belief that social processes are the most significant contributor to the learning process. Pritchard and Woolard agree with this, as they believe effective learning takes place when a person is engaged in meaningful social activity. We'll now look at some of the key features. Glaserfield called constructivism a vast and woolly area. This is because there are many facets to the theory and its use in the classroom is debated, but a few things can be agreed upon. Learners are active constructors of their own learning, rather than being passive recipients of information. Learners are not blank slates, they come with prior knowledge and experience which they bring to the learning environment. Pritchard and Duchesnay and McMahon, amongst others, describe individuals as having networks of cognitive structures, which they call schemas. These schemas contain information that's been accumulated over a person's lifetime. Piaget described the adding of new information to schemas as assimilation, and the need to alter a schema based on contradictory information, accommodation, and this helps us to understand how the construction of knowledge takes place. Schemas are individual to each person. Pritchard notes that the same features in schemas of two different people can have different connections for different reasons. We're now going to look at some of the strengths of the theory. Prior knowledge, experience, cultural and social heritage are valued, which make for a rich learning experience, where individuals are benefiting from each other's knowledge. Social networks are valued. Social networks between students and teachers and peer-to-peer networks through group work help to develop a co-constructive and collaborative environment. Bruner said that learners are active constructors, not passive recipients of information. Bruner said that when learners make meaningful connections, they are more likely to remember things. Constructivism promotes higher order cognition and encourages learners to be critical and problem solve, which are high on Bloom's taxonomy, evaluation, syntheses and analysis, and Solo taxonomy, the multi-structural and rational stages. Decky and Ryan also talk about emotional well-being and how autonomy and competence leads to positive emotional well-being. We'll now look at some of the limitations. According to Brevino, Dengel and Adams, setting up a constructivist classroom takes time and can be complicated. Teachers must provide enough support to facilitate the learning, which can be very time-consuming. Group work might not suit all learners, and it can take time to set up the right groups. Individuals also need the skills to manage their peer-to-peer relationships. Hemlo, Silver, Duncan and Chin found that unguided constructivist approaches to teaching show little evidence of fostering learning, and that pure discovery learning alone is not an effective learning tool. It can also be frustrating for some learners who need more external motivation and support. Fox believes that some forms of constructivism are too dismissive of the need at times for traditional learning methods, such as memorization and passive learning. Pritchard also recognises that at times Quiet individual work is more useful and productive. So we'll now look at a personal experience of mine, a bridge building exercise that I took part in at school. We were given background information on engineering and bridge building, as well as raw materials to build our bridges. We were given a clear learning goal, a clear learning outcome which was to build the bridge which could support the most weight. I would describe this as guided discovery, as we were given lots of autonomy and independence, but we had a clear goal. Before we began designing, we were asked to hypothesize which would be the best design based on our prior knowledge. Here we were using inquiry-based learning skills, a key part of constructivism, as we were problem solving and reasoning. During the design and build process, our teacher was on hand to give support. This is known as scaffolding, or as Pritchard and Woolard call it, planned interventions. Our teacher guided and prompted us, and promoted reflection by asking questions such as, why did you choose this design? How do you think it's going to work? I also believe we took part in what Duchenay and McMahon call peer-to-peer scaffolding, as more competent students in the group led others into the zone of proximal development. Looking back, this was a fun and worthwhile experience, and I think we learnt a lot more than if we'd just been given the information. We learnt good group skills and negotiation skills, but the key thing here, I believe, is that it was not just open discovery. We had guidance and a clear learning goal, which I think enhanced the learning experience and took it to high levels on Bloom's taxonomy and solo taxonomy. So to conclude, I believe constructivist learning theory has many strengths, such as social learning, learning by doing, observation and modelling, and allowing students freedom and autonomy to construct their own meaning and make connections. However, I think guidance from teachers along the way is paramount, and educators must take into account individual students' learning styles. I also believe there's little evidence to suggest that open discovery is an effective learning tool. I would definitely use guided constructivist activities as a teacher, but I would examine if it was appropriate for the situation and the students involved. I feel the debate over learning theories, whether one is better than the other, is not necessary, when each one has their own merits and limitations, and can be used together as a range of strategies and tools. And as Anita Woolfolk says, great teachers know and use them all.